Says starting. Okay, we're good.
So my name is Vanessa. I'm the lead student organizer on Rutgers Against Campus Militarism. Basically, we're here today opposing Rutgers' ties to the Defense Intelligence Agency. In 2015, Rutgers received a nearly $2 million grant to establish the Center for Critical Intelligence Studies. And today, there are at least 5 speakers from Department of Homeland Security and other intelligence community affiliated agencies on a symposium that's titled Fighting Hate While Preserving Freedom. And we're here today to raise awareness of the ties of the intelligence community to global violence, and domestic violence as well, in suppressing the work of activists all around the world, and as well as here in the States, movements that are fighting for human rights, civil rights, and our message here today is that we do not oppose people talking about fighting hate as much as we oppose the fact that the Defense Intelligence Agency is establishing and normalizing a presence on campus and indirectly perpetuating global and domestic violence against marginalized communities. Are you good? You good to go? Okay, so here is Robert with an opening song.
Who can kill a general in his bed? Overthrow dictators if they're red. Fucking amen. CIA man. Who can find a counter-agent quick? Especially the ones themselves of it. Fucking amen. CIA man. Who can plan a riot in Vietnam? Who can have the troops restore the calm? Fucking amen. CIA man. Who can buy a government so cheap? Change a cabinet without a squeak. Fucking amen. CIA man. Who can get a budget that's so great? Who will be the 51st state? Fucking amen. CIA man. Who has got the secretest service? The one that's got the other service nervous. Fucking amen. Amen. Who can cipher anything with zeros? Not well known, but simply worth the heroes. Fucking amen. CIA man. Who can take the sugar from a sack? Pour in LSD and put it back. Fucking amen. CIA man. Who can squash republics like bananas if they do not like the social manners? Fucking amen. CIA man. Who can train guerrillas by the dozens? Send them out to kill their untrained cousins. Fucking amen. CIA man. Who can mine the harbors of Nicaragua? I'll hit all the hitmen of Chicago. Fucking amen. CIA man. Who can be so overtly covert? Sometimes even covertly overt. Fucking amen. an agency well known to God. The one who's caught the staff and caught the draw. Fucking amen. CIA man. Fucking amen. CIA man. Fucking amen. CIA man.
Thank you for that. Would you like to Alright, so I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Mark.
The federal government and CIA have often played a huge part in demoralizing and villainizing the dissenting parties, specifically the political parties of this country. Specifically in this nation, I'm speaking about the nationalists that raised awareness of our own economic and social and economic statuses to increase those things, like Marcus Garvey, where the IRS literally destroyed his business, the Black Star Line, through falsifying economic evidence and financial documents. We also have the Black Panther Party, the Young Lords, the Young Puerto Ricans, the I War Quinn, and the plenty other youth groups and political activist party groups that the FBI literally sought out to destroy. They do this by putting together a plan to attack the head, divide the body, and fight the body. By doing this, they literally jail the leaders. They demobilize and destabilize the organization by dividing them, by putting them one against each other, by infiltrating them and using them to fight each other, which causes genocidal wars, urban genocidal wars, which today we recognize as gang wars. This is the work of the COINTEL program, the counterintelligence program. This is the work of the FBI and the federal government when it gets involved in free speech, when it gets involved in dissension, and when it gets involved in political parties and activism. You also have a long history of the U.S. government creating fusion centers. A fusion center is when the Homeland Security and or the FBI sets up they fund and grant a public or private institution and incorporate the private and public sector into gathering intelligence to stabilize and silence political party movements. This was most well known in Arizona and the Fusion Center for the Occupy Phoenix movement. And they've done this through the Occupy movements all over the country, and they've done this with Black Lives Matter as well. They've also have a history of going into third world and war-ridden countries such as Haiti, Nicaragua, Guatemala, and Honduras, and using the government to establish a power structure, and it usually puts the left as antagonists and forces them to be the villains of their own society, in which they only fight for a better place. And this is what happens when the federal government gets involved in the dissenting arguments, especially against the power structure that big.
Thank you, Mark, for coming out and speaking about U.S. intelligence intervention in suppressing activist movements. Next up is Josue. He was a former president of Rutgers and has always been involved in the campus organizing community, and was the lead organizer on the No Ban, No Wall protest, and a key organizer in establishing a sanctuary campus here at Rutgers.
All right, everybody. First of all, I want to start off with the chant, to get some spirits riled up. So repeat after me. DHS, CIA, how many lives did you wreck today? DHS, CIA, how many lives did you wreck today? DHS, CIA, how many lives did you wreck today? Alright, hopefully they heard us, right? Hopefully they heard us. But I wrote this speech last night, 4 or 5 a.m., contemplating whether or not I should speak because, you know, the U.S. Secretary of Homeland, former U.S. Secretary of Homeland Security is in there, and as you all know, they are the head of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So I'm undocumented, and that paints a big target on my back. So, nevertheless, I am here because I want y'all to, you know, hear my words. All right. Alright, so my name is Josué Serrano. I am undocumented. As I said, I am the former co-president of Rutgers. And I have some words to say. So, five times I tried to take my life. 5 months since my last attempt to take my life due to years of depression and anxiety and trauma directly and indirectly caused by the same department Rutgers decided to invite to our campus today. I remember hiding in my closet in fear of the Department of Homeland Security and their Customs and Immigration Enforcement. I remember having my father ripped away from me by agents who were looking for someone else but took him instead because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I remember my family bracing for the worst with every new immigration raid that occurred right here in New Brunswick. I remember school teachers in New Brunswick telling me that their kids are going to counselors more and more, showing symptoms of depression and anxiety under this current administration. Is this what you condone, Rutgers? Is this who you want on our campus to talk to us about protecting dissent and the right way to protest? I see you followed their lead, Felicia McGinty, by authoring an anti-protest bill which would give a student conduct violation to any student caught disrupting business as usual. But let me get back to the topic. I'm holding this sign today because every Latinx community member should be reminded of their history. And so every one of you can take a look at the cause of such socioeconomic turmoil in the majority of Latin America. This country seems to actively forget about what they've done to our countries. They have forgotten about their imperialist ways that led to the destruction of progressive political movements and the destruction of economies due to oppressive neoliberal reforms geared to appease their imperialist agenda. We are here because you were there. Why do you build a wall with Mexico and stigmatize their immigrants when you were asking for their labor during the Bracero movement? Why have you ripped apart Mexican families when you destroyed countless community economies with your NAFTA reforms? Why do you take away TPS from El Salvador and Haiti when you were there staging coups, exploiting their workers, and continue to oppress them while doing nothing to aid them? Department of Homeland Security, what will you do to rectify your actions? Because we can count 100 items on our list, but when will you take accountability for your actions? When will you take your bases and military out of our countries? When will you give us the DREAM Act? When will you stop separating families? Rutgers, how many times do I have to stand in front of you and yell at you, protest you, call you out for the simple mistakes that could be resolved if you would just invite the organizations and the people who are oppressed to the table and include them in these discussions? When will you fire Felicia McGinty for failing to do her job? When will you wake up and realize that you cannot control the movement here on campus? We have the power, porque el pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Thank you.
Unido, jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido,
Jamás será vencido. El pueblo unido jamás será vencido. Okay, and if we can get our next speaker. Anyone?
Yes. Can I just this is being live streamed right now at Rutgers Against Campus Militarism. So if anyone could get their phone and share that out further and wider now while it's going on, that'd be awesome. Thanks. Say hi to the FBI.
So, my name's Matt. I'm the Educational Development Officer of Onondaga, New Jersey, a Filipino youth and student organization fighting for national democracy and progressive change in the Philippines, and also fighting for the welfare of Filipinos here in the U.S. First, I want to affirm that it's vital that we as a Rutgers community loudly denounce the despicable acts of Islamophobic and white supremacist hate that have taken place on our campus and around New Brunswick. But at the same time, loudly condemn this Rutgers administration for its own hateful acts towards its own students. The title of the symposium taking place in there is called Fighting Hate While Preserving Freedom. So tell me, how can Rutgers claim to be fighting hate when its president at a town hall last year said that hate speech is something that should be protected? How are they preserving freedom by being gracious hosts to the Defense Intelligence Agency and Department of Homeland Security, institutions we know fundamentally erode our freedom, and primarily that of black and brown people and those fighting for their own welfare? In fact, how can we even say that the people of the Rutgers community have freedom in the first place when activists fighting for a living wage, my friends who are dual members of Onondaga and United Students Against Sweatshops, on top of 10 other student activists, have received criminal charges for a basic non-violent protest? So, according to Rutgers, probably, when the FBI undermined black civil rights and black liberation struggles in the 60s, that must have been preserving freedom to them. Activism is not illegal, and it is right to rebel against an unjust system. This event in here today is not about preserving freedom. It's about preserving a sham freedom, which amounts to the ruling class patting themselves on the back for giving token speeches against hate, but never confronting the real structures of oppression that cause hate: white supremacy, patriarchy, and capitalism. It is not freedom for the vast majority of us who suffer from these systems. The Filipino people are well acquainted with the crimes of U.S. intelligence, and our country has in fact been a testing ground for all kinds of intelligence strategies and tactics aimed at containing and pacifying any movement towards real sovereignty and freedom. The Philippines were one of America's first overseas colonies, and its capital, Manila, was host to a CIA training facility as early as the 1950s. The tactics of counterinsurgency and undercutting mass movements with bribes and superficial development aid were first applied in the Philippines and later in other U.S. colonies, as well as turned inward to the U.S. people themselves. Given this history of intelligence services actively working against people's movements, going back to COINTELPRO in the 60s, and even today, infiltration of movements like J20 and Black Lives Matter. So what reason do we have to believe that these agencies speaking in here today aren't going to apply the same thing here on our campus and in our community? So, what is the legacy? I just want to talk a little bit about what's the legacy of U.S. intelligence and imperialism in the Philippines today. The Philippines continues to be of great interest to the imperial war machine because of its strategic geographic location, potential for agriculture, and rich mineral resources. The Philippines is extremely rich, but its people are devastatingly poor. The U.S. sends tens of millions of dollars of aid, both in military aid and development aid, to pacify and control the Filipino people on the armed front and the civilian front, respectively. U.S. funding of extremist groups to counter popular movements has directly led to the existence of Al-Qaeda, Abu Sayyaf, and ISIS in the Philippines. The existence of these groups serves to destabilize the region, discredit real people's struggles, and justify U.S. intervention. These harsh realities were manifested most clearly in the siege of Marawi last year, where the whole city of Marawi was shelled to a husk under the advisory of U.S. Special Forces. Almost its entire population remains displaced in inadequate and inhumane temporary shelters and faces intense food shortages up till today. This is the legacy of U.S. intelligence. So, this event here today really shows Rutgers' priorities and who their allegiance really lies with. U.S. intelligence agencies in service of the U.S. ruling class and its war machine have an astounding track record of spreading hate, undermining freedom, and violently opposing those seeking just a better life for oppressed people. Rutgers has no problem inviting these people to speak on our campus and providing a pipeline for its students to even work for this vile war machine. Rutgers administration is against your liberation. We must call for U.S. intelligence to get the fuck off our campus. Rutgers administration is against your liberation. Thank you. U.S. imperialist, number one terrorist. U.S. imperialist,
#1 terrorist.
Let me see if I can find something to read. I have a statement here from Cooney Internationalist Club in solidarity. Is there anyone who would like to read this statement? I can read it. Okay. The Cooney Internationalist Clubs and Revolutionary International Youth send our solidarity with efforts to expose and protest incursions by the Defense Intelligence Agency at Rutgers. We face a similar menace at the City University of Newark, where the Central Intelligence Agency has signed an agreement to set up shop at Baruch College, a major Cooney campus in Midtown Manhattan. See CIA out of Cooney now, and their website is atinternationalist.org. This is a huge national issue. The drive to make students, faculty, and staff cogs in the imperialist war machine is an attack on us all. We must stand together to defend our universities against this attack. At Cooney, the drive for militarization escalated in 2013 with the trustees' provocative political decision to hire former CIA head and war criminal David Petraeus, ex-commander of the Iraq and Afghanistan wars. From Cooney to Rutgers, when we stand up against the CIA, DIA, and company targeting our schools, we're opposing a drive by spy agencies notorious for murder and torture under Democrats and Republicans alike. Even the New York Times notes that the person Donald Trump recently named to head the CIA, Gina Haspel, is best known for her role in the CIA's torture program. We agree with Rutgers activists that spy agencies' incursions endanger basic rights on campuses across the country. All the more so when the DIA tries to cloak itself with grotesque pretense that it has something to do with advancing best practices in defense of free speech. From Southern Africa to Central America to the Middle East, the initials CIA and DIA stand for the opposite of free speech, or any kind of freedom for the oppressed. The tortured and mutilated body of African independence leader Patrice Lumumba tells the story. So does the record of CIA, DIA, NSA, FBI terror. From Guatemala to the Bay of Pigs to Chile, from the Phoenix program of mass assassination in Vietnam to the COINTELPRO frame up and murder program against Black Panthers, to CIA drones raining death from the skies today. How many students and teachers, how many workers, poor and oppressed people around the world have had their voices silenced and their lives snuffed out by these agencies of counter-revolution, of infiltration, surveillance, torture, and terror? Around the world, millions of our sisters and brothers know the answer to that lie. In defending them and opposing the subjugation of our schools to the agencies of racist repression, we are defending our own rights here as well. Mass revulsion at the spy agencies' crimes pushed them off college campuses across the country in the 60s and 70s. But now they want to come back with a vengeance. The CIA says its incursion at Baruch is a pilot project for future plans. Same as here, right? The CIA and DIA want to take Cooney, Rutgers, and other campuses as staging grounds for their spying and their terror. No way. This new assault must be met with a massive outpouring of protest and exposure. It is vitally important that we keep building solidarity and common efforts in this regard. Together we say, DIA out of Rutgers, CIA out of Cooney. As part of this work, we invite you to get in touch with us at CooneyInternationalist@gmail.com. That was a statement of the Cooney Internationalist Clubs and Revolutionary Internationalist Youth from Cooney. Thank you very much for participating and supporting us, folks in Cooney.
All right, so now, all right, so let's do another chant. Anybody got an idea for a chant?
CIA again.
From U.S. to the Philippines, stop the U.S. war machine.
From U.S. to the Philippines, stop the U.S. war machine.
Palestine to the Philippines.
From Palestine to the Philippines, stop the U.S. war machine. From Palestine to the Philippines, stop the U.S. war machine. CIA off campus!
CIA off campus!
All right, so I want to take this time right now to first of all thank everyone who came out here to support. I do want to acknowledge and remind everybody that if you would be interested, we are planning on doing a panel discussion later on in this month, which will it would be around the end of April, which we'll essentially have a panel discussion talking about the U.S. and their talking about U.S. imperialism, talking about how they have managed to drill and affect our countries, affect our nation domestically, internationally. So if you would like to get involved, you could definitely reach out to us, reach out to our Rutgers Against Campus Militarism page, and we would be glad to respond and see, how we can make this work. So, all right, I want to see if there's another speaker out here who's ready to talk.
Can I talk?
Yeah.
I didn't give up my at-bat by reading that other statement, sorry. What we're doing here and right now is a concrete act of disarmament, and it's integral. As we are right now, perhaps minutes, days, weeks, months away from launching cataclysmic ultimate war against the Korean Peninsula. Make no mistake, a war on Korea is a war on the whole peninsula, not just a war on North Korea. Because once the bombs start flying, they start flying in all directions, and literally hundreds of thousands, perhaps millions, will be killed. The new appointee for the National Security Advisor in the administration, Bolton, he had an op-ed piece in the Wall Street Times calling for a first strike against Korea. And he's moving in to take over this decision. We are on the front lines of a disarmament fight because Rutgers is being weaponized as a weapon in this war. Rutgers now is offering paid stipends for field work for the CIA, the FBI, and the National Security Agency. They're going on field trips. They're going abroad. Are they showing them the advanced interrogation techniques 101? Is that a new course here in the intelligence department? We have a minor in intelligence at Rutgers as part of the DIA grant. This is a recruitment operation. And they're not only recruiting through that minor, they're putting tentacles out into other departments and sending guest speakers and inviting guest speakers. Operatives are coming into classes as guest speakers. And you can bet that they're also recruiting. Students are helping in with recruiting. Students who are interning are getting to talk in classes, and while they're talking, they're mentioning, oh, by the way, we have some paid internships. So they're creating an incentive for students to get involved in these operations. Rutgers is taking students and taking its classrooms operational. It's not the first time. When I went to Rutgers, there was a program here, it started right after I graduated. There was a program here in Hickman Hall on the Douglas campus, and they had a whole class helping a professor who was secretly on contract with the CIA to do research on Europe, and the whole class was researching the disarmament movement and the labor movement in Europe. Okay? And this professor had a contract putting together a report for the CIA on that very topic. So these students were, unbeknownst to themselves, working for the CIA. They weren't getting paid. They were just getting a grade. They were paying for that opportunity. So this is not new. There's a lot of other examples. CIA has always recruited, but this is a major escalation, and they're trying to legitimize it with forums like today. Now, we have no beef with coming up with a plan to defend places of worship and communities against acts of hate. That's and if there's violence going on that's facing people in the community, that's the role the police should play. The police should catch these people, and that's. So we're not against everything going on in there. We're focused mainly on the symposium, part of the symposium that's at 1:30, and that the backdrop being provided by Michael Cohen, is it?
John.
John Cohen. John Cohen is basically, dare I say, the CIA station chief at Rutgers. He is pretty much overseeing the Intelligence Community Center for Academic Excellence. And that through that they're providing a minor program, a 16 credit, 18 credit minor. So you can minor in U.S. intelligence now at Rutgers. And he is providing the backdrop for the forum that is hate versus freedom in the social media and on the college campuses. And facilitating the panel is Rutgers' chief counsel. That means the top lawyer of Rutgers. The top lawyer of Rutgers is sitting down with the top CIA guy, a Rutgers police officer, and a police officer from a Florida campus. Now, I don't know anything about these police officers, but I do know that intelligence also does cultivate ties to police forces on college campuses. So,
Muslim Student Association.
well, the CIA had a safe house in New Brunswick in the early part of the century, like 25, 26, I think. And they, in conjunction with the New York Police Department coming into New Brunswick with the CIA, they set up a safe house to spy on the Muslim Student Association and Muslim members of the New Brunswick community. That happened. That's what we're inviting. The other thing that I would expect that they're going to be talking about is data analytics and predictive analytics. That's what it's all about. The NSA collects everything. We know that. Facebook collects everything. I mean, all this boosting, Russia boosting, and that analytic firm with the elections and everything. They got us pegged. Now, what they're likely to do is to start getting some of that analytical data on the students here and start analyzing that with the police departments and the intelligence departments so that they can start monitoring the political activity of the students here. And these are international agencies that might have people in the countries that some of the students here might have them in the crosshairs. And they might want to monitor what their family members are doing over here while they're here as students. This is a very dangerous operation to the families of Rutgers students, because these agencies work with very nefarious organizations all over the world. And I'm talking death squads and terrorist squads. That's what the CIA does. Everything you've seen in the movies is all true, but it's much worse because they're not the good guys. They're the ones in there toppling governments and keeping people oppressed, all for maintaining the most beneficial investment climate for multinational corporations. Not even necessarily American corporations, multinational corporations. So you can't even use nationalism to justify this. Because these corporations, if they think that their profits are going to slip because the labor movement's getting too strong, or they're building schools that requires them to pay taxes, or a health program, and the corporations, the intelligence agencies basically have these corporations as they're the vendor for these corporations. That's their client. The intelligence agencies serve at the behest of these corporations to maintain a most favorable investment climate, and they will do anything and everything. When you hear about all these people dying and getting killed, like the woman in Brazil recently, and all these other things happening, the threats with the Filipino community here, the threats against the Filipinos going on right now. Now, I can only imagine how much Operation CIA has going on in the Philippines, helping coming up with those list of names that Duterte keeps holding up and say, these are the people who are going to get it. And I know that's your brothers and sisters over there. So I know you have a stake in this fight. So anyway, you are on the forefront of a disarmament struggle, because we are trying to dismantle the weaponization of Rutgers, the turning of this campus from a university into a weapon of war and imperialism. And we are on the eve of potential cataclysmic world war that kills everybody. So you are at the forefront of this. And I hope the rest of the anti-war movement recognizes that you are playing this key role in possibly saving the whole planet from extinguishment. All right, thank you.
So I know it's cold out here and windy, so if there's anyone else that wants to speak, feel free to come up. But
Robert could do another song.
yeah. So if there's no one else that wants to speak, I just want to thank all of you for coming out here, braving the cold, braving the wind, to hold your signs up and show that there is resistance. There is resistance to the intelligence presence on campus. We recognize the role of Rutgers in its complicity in U.S. imperialist violence by allowing these intelligence agents to be on campus, and we will not be silenced.
All right. I also want to make everyone aware we do have a sign-in sheet coming around. So if you'd like, put your information down. But if not, you can always follow. We'll be posting as well. As a reminder of our panel discussion later on this month. If you are interested, please just mark it down on the sign-in sheet, and then we could definitely reach out to you. But nevertheless, I do want to again thank you everyone for coming out here, braving the cold, and making it known that we will not stand for U.S. imperialist regimes coming to this university.
Can I just mention something about this? Yeah. And I've been handing out this paper, New Jersey Anti-War Agenda. If you haven't gotten at least one copy, come and make sure you get a copy. But also, if you want to take some and take them back to your dormitory classes, etc., I got about another 150 here, so I'm willing to part with all of them. All right, thank you. This is great.
The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated. The people united will never be defeated.
The people
United will never be defeated. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Woo! No, never. I've literally let
I know, right? Not cold.
I've yelled at them so many times.